Hey guys, I'm Kerr Smith. I played Carter Horton in Final Destination, the original film, and you are watching Pop Culture with Pat.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. So excited to be talking to today's guests. Today we're going to be talking all things Final Destination, the original film, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary with Kerr Smith, who plays Carter in the film. Kerr, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Good to be here.
You're very welcome. Yeah, excited to talk about the film, all things about Final Destination. We were talking before we jumped on. I'm sure at the time when you guys do these kind of films, you don't kind of probably don't think about the life that it might take on after that initial film. And now we're having part six coming out, just next week.
Yeah, if you would have asked me this question 25 years ago, I would have said, man, I would love to be part of a franchise. It'd be so cool to have a successful movie. The
Yeah.
pro which is what happened, which is great. But the problem is when you do the first one, you don't know it's a successful franchise. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So the experience was very, very different. It was a movie called Flight 180. Who knew if it was going to be good? I'll tell you though, when I knew, actually, I thought we had a good movie on our hands was one when they changed the title. And I remember talking to, I think it was either Glenn Morgan or Craig Perry, one of the producers. And I said, this title kind of, we're up at the Vancouver airport. And I said, this title kind of sucks. He's like, yeah. And I forget who they gave the credit to, but somebody obviously came up with Final Destination. I was like, oh yeah, now you're talking. This is going to be sweet.
Yeah, no, it's a great title, obviously. And so can you talk about, Kurt, just like how, obviously there was an audition at some point. Can you talk about the audition process for you? And did you audition for any of the other characters? Because I know sometimes that happens where you'll go in for several different characters who you fit best with. So did you audition for anyone else?
I did not. I do remember the audition. It was in the summer of probably '99. It was my first free 3 months after had starting Dawson's Creek the year prior. So I wanted to fit a good movie in. And I was specifically going after a very kind of butch asshole kind of role. And this thing came up and I read Flight 180 and I was like, oh, this is perfect. So I remember going down to the Fox lot, and on the Fox lot, they have all these mobile homes, which are a lot of the production offices. And I went into one of those mobile homes, and I remember talking with James Wong, and I forget who else was there, one of the producers. And I read by myself with the casting director. And then I remember saying, I think what got me the role was when I said, Carter, he's more scared than anybody else in the movie. He just masks it with his, demeanor.
Yeah.
And I think when I saw the reaction when I said that, I was like, I walked out and I go, okay, I got a pretty good shot at this.
And what was your reaction to just reading the script for the first time? Because honestly, like top of my head, there wasn't really anything that had been done like this in horror up to this point.
My initial reaction was that it was unique in that the killer wasn't a physical person. So whatever death was to you, you could use your imagination and make it whatever you want because it was not a tangible thing. So in that regard, it's much scarier, and it kind of lends towards a really unique series.
When the script got to you, because I had seen this, I think it was within the past couple of years that an interview had come out that apparently at one point there was a version of the script where death was almost rather than just like seeing the different objects falling down and things like that, there almost was a personification of death going after these kids and the survivors' guilt. It made some of the survivors drove them to suicide. When you got the script, did you ever remember seeing that, or was it just the version that we saw in the film?
No, I didn't see that script. The version that I originally saw was the first version of the film. I don't know if you know, but the whole ending was completely redone 6 months
Yeah.
after we shooting. Yeah, so that was the version that I saw
Now,
or read.
as far as that ending, because seeing the alternative ending, and granted, at the time, you guys didn't know how successful this was going to be in turning to this franchise, but in that original ending, Carter actually survives. So, was there ever any discussions? I know you guys ended up reshooting it, so I'm assuming probably not, but was there ever any discussions of possibly bringing you back if this was successful for a part two or?
No, I mean, the dead last frame of the film, dead. I know you don't see it, but definitely got taken out.
Yeah, well, so like in like the one that hit theaters, but like when they originally shot it, the one like the alternative version.
No, because what they did was after they made that first version, they went out and they tested it with audiences, and the ending didn't test well. So they knew they had, New Line was like, not New Line, Line, yeah, it was New Line. New Line was like, we got to finish, we got to fix this ending. So I think a lot of people wanted to see my character die just because he was such a dick. And there were other reasons too for changing the ending. But yeah, we went back to 6 months later after we were done. We went back that winter of '99 and went up to Victoria, Canada, and did that whole French street thing with the sign.
Yeah. And I mean, assuming like we definitely think that he is, I mean, he did die, but it's one of those things in horror films sometimes where it's like where you never actually see the body that, but I mean, assuming that he did die, but it would have been cool if they would have figured out a way to like bring you back in like one of these like later installments in the franchise somehow.
You'd think, I mean, it would have been cool, and I would have said yes. I mean, hell, I didn't even know. I was doing an interview a couple years back, and I didn't even know I was in five.
Yeah.
Found out in an interview. I'm like, what? What do you mean I'm in the movie? I didn't know they used that old footage.
Yeah, part five. I remember seeing that in theaters, and that was one of the best twists that I can just think of off the top of my head. Watching that movie, you had no idea going into this thing that was, just it's another sequel, part five. Never expected that you guys were gonna show up at the end as they were getting on that same plane. So that's crazy. So it must have been, do you know how that kind of like came up? Have you like since you found that out, have you like done any research how that kind of came about? Was it something that they were able to just use stock footage of you guys or
Yeah, I mean, obviously they just used stock footage, and they didn't even ask. So that's kind of weird. But of course, I would have said yes, but it would have been nice to ask.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. I just know that they wanted to like cap it off and go full circle after five, and that's exactly what they did. So this whole six thing, it was debated. I think a lot if they were going to do six, because I heard, okay, the script's been written. Oh, then 5 months later, no, we're not going to do it. Oh, we are going to do it.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know that went. So yeah, I'm kind of excited to see it in a couple of weeks.
As far as like this first film, as far as the death scenes that your character was involved in, do you remember which one was the most challenging to film out of the bunch?
Yeah. Well, none of us died, or did we? Well, I guess the most challenging scene to film was there were two actually. One was the plane
Yeah.
going down, that whole thing, because we did that on stage. It was a part of a fuselage that was rebuilt, and they had this thing. It was open on the one end, so they had the cameras going down the aisle. And you could get in and out of this thing, but it was on a gimbal. And there was literally a dude on the side of the stage going like this with a joystick, and this whole thing just rocked back and forth. And apparently it was off weight, and it broke right away in like
Oh wow.
steep angle. Yeah, so we all had to like get rescued off this thing while they fixed it. It was really fun for me. Other people were getting pretty sick because it was very rocky and it was just kind of crazy. The other one that was tough was Sean's death with the train going by. That was really tricky because we were doing nights. We did like 10 days of nights up in Squamish, which is on the way up to Whistler outside of Vancouver in BC. And it's in the middle of nowhere. And they had paid to have this train ride by, two different trains ride by at two different times. Like, can you imagine how much A, that costs,
Yeah.
and B, the producers, because you only get one shot. The first train was, I believe the first one was when we split my car. So I had three cars. I had a stunt car. I had the production car that I drove. Sometimes I drove the stunt car, but that thing was terrible. And then the third one had the engine removed, and it was almost sawed in half. That's the one we put on the tracks, and that's the one that the train hits. So that one was not too hard to do. The second one is when we're all in the car and you can see the train coming up. You know, we're actually not in the car. Interestingly enough, we're in this makeshift safety box on the side of the tracks as the train goes by, just for this shot. The rest of it, we're in the car.
Yeah.
And I remember Evan and I looking at each other and we're like, is this safe, dude? Because they used this series of mirrors to make it look like we were in the car. It was brilliant how they did it. And I'm sitting here going, this train's like, it's like 2 feet to your right. I mean, it's like kind of scary, but it was very different, very technical. And like I said, the pressure was on because we had one shot to get this right.
God, yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, because I mean, a train, it's going so fast. It's like it's not like you can, oh yeah, get it up and going again. Plus the cost factor that you had mentioned. Now, as far as like the deaths in the film too, who do you think had the most brutal death out of everybody in that first movie?
Well, Amanda was very sudden. In terms of pain, she didn't feel a thing.
Yeah,
Sean didn't feel a thing. Sliced his head. Hey, if anybody hasn't seen the movie,
yeah.
sorry. Who else? I would say probably. Well, Kristen's character, she got knifed a bunch of times, right?
Yeah.
I forget.
Oh yeah. Hers was really, really, really kind of like drawn out.
That was kind of drawn out and brutal. And then Todd's death too in the bathroom, getting strangled. That one was pretty brutal too.
Yeah.
So I'd say one.
I'll say Todd's death. I mean, I just recently rewatched the film, and every time watching it, I think it's just the wire wrapping around, and then you see the blood fill up in his eyes.
Yeah.
Every time watching that scene, it just gets me. It's like, yeah, no. So I'd agree. I would think probably those two would be up there for me. Now, have you seen any of the other films in the franchise up to this point? I know we had talked about like five. You found out about that in an interview, but
I have seen bits and pieces. I have not seen all of them. No.
okay. Now, as far as when you were like working on this movie, did it cause you to think twice about anything that you might come across in your everyday life? Like I know for me, part two with the log scene, I will refuse to drive behind a log truck anytime that's on the highway. I will pull over to the side or get into another lane. So did you have anything like that? Has that happened to you, throughout your life after working on this film?
Yeah, I always get asked this question. No, it didn't affect me that way. Just because I was there and it wasn't a scary thing. Even watching it after, I was like, okay, that's pretty sweet, but that didn't. I don't drive behind trucks with logs in it anyway because it's just crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a good scene, and that seems to be everybody's favorite scene, the log truck, and I think it was in two, right?
Two. Yeah. No, yeah, that one was brutal. And I mean, honestly though, even I had seen the first film, and not too long afterwards, I got on my first flight. We were going down on a vacation to go to Disney of all places. But you guys freaked me out. I remember being like in like the airport lobby, and I was like, oh, I don't want to go on the plane. It's gonna catch on fire and all this stuff. So
Well, I'll tell you what, if I ever get on a plane, and to this day I still think of this, if I ever get on a plane and that little doohickey that keeps the food tray up breaks.
yep, out. I'm right there with you, man. I totally hear you. And when did you you talked about like when you knew that you had a good movie on your guys' hands, but when did you realize that Final Destination had truly made a big impact on the pulp culture universe?
Well, I think it was right after our movie first got released. I mean, it did so well, and then New Line wanted to do a second one. So I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Franchise time. This is great. Too bad I'm dead.
Yeah.
I will, Pat, I'll say this, when they changed the title, I was like, this is going to be great. But I'll tell you when I really kind of got the aha moment of when I thought this could be a really good movie.
Mm-hmm.
And again, before any kind of franchise talk. So it was just, hey, let's get a good film out. We were again in the Vancouver airport, and one of the producers said, let me show you some stuff that we're doing just so you know the degree to which we're going to make this movie eerie. And I was like, oh, cool. So they took me down to the jetway that they had built. It wasn't a regular jetway. And, I'm 6 feet tall, so I'm standing in the beginning of the jetway, and it's, I don't know, 2 feet over my head, 8 feet tall, regular jetway. I walked down to the end of the jetway, and by the time I got there, I almost had to duck. So what they were doing was creating this optical illusion that you weren't aware of mentally, that, it was just skewed. The angles were just off. So the ceiling started at like 8 feet and ended at like 6.5 feet by the time you got down there. And it just makes you go, what? Something, you know what I mean? It's weird. They did the
Yeah.
same thing with Chad Danella's death in the bathroom. All the bathroom tiles aren't at 90-degree angles.
Interesting. That
When they told me this, I was like, okay, we got something going here. This is neat.
Yeah, just though I love those little details that I mean I had no clue about that, going into it. So that's really cool. And I mean, obviously now we're going on part six. The fans absolutely love this franchise. What do you think it is about this franchise that fans have just connected with it and continue to come back over and over again over the years?
Yeah, well, it's like I said, I think it's because of what death is in this movie, that it's not a physical person. So that can be, it has a little bit of a paranormal flavor to it, which is why my wife won't even watch it. She hasn't even seen it. If it's a guy running around a mask, she'll watch it. But if it's the paranormal, she won't do it. But I think that's the reason, because like I said, death can be anything that you want, whatever that scary thing is for you. It's kind of like the Freddy Krueger deal,
Yeah,
you know, similar.
everyone needs sleep.
Yeah, right.
That's one of the terrifying things about it. And I'm curious for you too, because did you get a chance to interact with Tony Todd at all? Like whether it was even like behind the scenes or anything like that with him?
I did not work the day that they did the morgue.
Yeah.
I believe was his only scene. So no, I did. I don't even think I had the opportunity to meet Tony on set because I would have remembered.
Yeah, I'll say
Yeah.
just because I mean he became such a staple in this franchise, showing up and again, and I love that they got to bring him back for part six, and rest in peace. It's I believe this was his last role that we get to see him in, and I guess it sounds like too from what I've heard that we're going to find out at least somewhat the origins of his character, kind of who he
Oh,
is and everything. So I'm really curious to hear about that, but. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I know you didn't have like a scene, but I wasn't sure if like yeah, maybe if you guys got a chance to connect or anything, like in between like sh shots or something like that.
yeah. No, I don't. I don't remember it.
What does it mean to you, I guess, just like on like a personal level that this film, we're talking about it 25 years later, a piece of your work that fans just remember it so fondly. I'm sure that I know you've done conventions. I'm sure you've signed a bunch of posters and talked to fans about the film that you've made something that is just connected so deeply with, fans and new generations are even discovering it now.
Yeah, it's quite a big hit at these conventions that I do. I do 4 or 5 of these every year, and it's for me. It's just like I'm just like I said. I'm happy to be part of a successful franchise. I just wish that I could have been in more of the movies, but unfortunately
Yeah.
not. I also wish that I wasn't such a new actor when I did this movie, because I look back at it now and I would have made way better choices now.
Yeah.
So there's always that conversation you have at these conventions. Oh, you were so great, and then I'm like, oh, thank you very much. In the back of my mind, I'm going, yeah, right. But I don't know. I'm just kind of happy that that I could be at least a small part of it. But I mean, I just it's cool to be in the original film because it was just like pre-franchise and it was just a completely different experience. You know what I mean? It's like being on a series that hasn't hit yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, and I mean back then, like there was franchises. We had like the Halloweens, we had the Friday the 13th, the all
Yeah.
those different things. But those were kind of I feel kind of dying off at that time a little bit. The 90s. So there wasn't, and I feel like the film industry wasn't as obsessed with the sequels and the franchises as they are now. So back then it was just like, oh, this is a one and done type of film. How's because you just said you just started doing the convention circuit like in the past like couple years, you said.
Yeah, I think it's been about 3 or 4 years now, maybe 3 years.
How's and so that's been going pretty well as far as just like getting being able to connect with the fans because obviously back then when this came out, social media really wasn't a thing either. So it's like you guys would put out projects and you know that they were popular because, whether it was like Dawson's Creek, the numbers, you guys obviously came back a number of times, but there wasn't that direct connect with the fans. So how's that experience been like for you, just being able to connect with them on a one-on-one level?
It's been great because it made me realize the impact that it's had on a lot of people. And like I said, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that log story, right?
Yeah.
Don't drive trucks with logs. But it's been a good time for me to just interact with everybody. And like I said, it's always a huge hit at these conventions. I like the conventions that are more sci-fi. I
Yeah.
do some of the times because then the Star Trek guys are there, and I'm like, ah, yes, yes,
Oh
love
yeah.
that. I love huge Trekkie.
Yeah, I mean the conventions I've been going to them now for about like 10 years. I'm a big horror guy just like in general, but it's like you go to these conventions and there's usually a little bit of something for everybody there. They usually get guests from like all kinds of different genres. You get to connect with, with the actors. So it's yeah, it's a great experience. I'm glad that, you were able to start doing them a couple years ago and you've had a good experience with them.
It's been great. I mean, my first couple, I was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Because, a lot of guys dress up and it's just, the costumes are so good and so
Yeah.
eerie, contests and everything. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. So now I'm just like, ah, I'm sitting there going, the amount of work that guy put into that costume is insane.
Oh yeah,
You
it's
know what I mean?
amazing.
Seriously, and it's really fun to be a part of it.
Have you been able to, because I think I've seen like a picture of you and Devon at least at these cons. Have you been able to connect with any of the other original casts since filming that film, 25 years ago?
Yeah, so Devin and I do these together every once in a while when our schedules sync up, and we are actually trying. I've reached out to Allie to get her involved. I don't know if she's going to do it. These cons are a
That'd be cool.
little, yeah, it would be great. And then Sean as well. I haven't personally reached out to Sean, but I know my manager for that con stuff.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be. I think he's going to jump in with Devin and I once or twice. So we'll see how that goes. That'd be really great because if you can get like the three of us at least, it would be awesome. Because I know when the screen guys like when they do these conventions, it's just one of them. It's like but like when four or five of them do it, it's a huge hit.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I've done a couple like already this year and like Matthew Lillard and Skeet
Yeah,
Ulrich and those guys. Yeah, it's insane the lines that you see for, just lining up to meet these people with these reunions and I know Sean he's started doing some of them because he was supposed to be at Rhode Island, which is close to me this past year, but he had to cancel. I'm assuming for like filming or something like that. So I know he's like done them. So yeah, that'd be great if we can get all you guys, especially where it's the 25th anniversary of the film. So fingers crossed.
reach out to him and give him a little nudge.
Yeah. Well, hey, Kurt, just to wrap things up for you, is there anything else that you would just like to say, about the film, the original film, working on that, and just to the fans out there, and where can people stay up to date with you moving forward?
Yeah, guys, I'm glad you enjoyed the first five. We had a blast making them, and it was a lot of fun. And hey, enjoy number six.
And you're on Instagram, right? Fans can stay up to date with you there.
Actor.Kerr.Smith, just
Perfect.
Instagram.
Awesome. Well, hey, Kerr, thank you so much. It's been amazing talking to you about it. I love, the Final Destination franchise, one of my favorite horror franchises. So it was a pleasure having you on here talking about the movie. And you're welcome back anytime in the future.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it, man. Hey, guys, I'm Kerr Smith. I played Carter Horton in Final Destination, the original film, and you are watching Pop Culture with Pat.